This week brings us Thanksgiving, which is a time when we get together with family and celebrate all the best things in life. In an effort to celebrate one of my favorite holidays, I wanted to talk about one of entertainment's most iconic families. I'm of course talking about the Addams Family, the horror-themed comic strip from Charles Addams that went on to spawn a popular TV series and a pair of Hollywood movies. There was also a game by ICOM Simulations that was loosely based on the original 1991 film. And when I say loosely, I mean that they changed pretty much everything. Turn back now if you don't want to know what happens next, because today we're going to spoil the story and ending of the Addams Family on the TurboGrafx-CD. This is Game Over, the early years. I want you to imagine playing a game based on Goldfinger. Only instead of taking the role of Super Agent James Bond, we end up controlling main bad guy Auric Goldfinger, and the game spends most of the time telling us that he's the good guy. That's basically what happens in the Addams Family on the TurboGrafx. Instead of taking control of Gomez, Morticia, Wednesday, Cousin It, or a half dozen of the other characters we all know and love, they decided to center the story on the family lawyer, Tully Alford, who in the movie is played by the great character actor Dan Hedaya. Usually I try to explain the setups of these games, but I'm just gonna let the cinema do all the talking. I just want you to know that this is exactly how the cinema appears in the game, and it's the very first thing you see when you press the run button. I didn't edit this in any way.
Yeah, it's not easy being you, Tully Alford. But that's okay. Could have been worse. Could have been an Addams. It's hard trying to live up to Mother's lofty goals.
Why couldn't you be more like your brother? How do you ever expect to make a living slaving over those extravagant weirdos, the Addams family?
Hey, what about my goals? Oh, what's the use? Here I am again, just like clockwork. Too bad we couldn't do this once a year. I mean, why should I have to demean myself each and every time I set foot on this property?
Tully, my boy, you seem a bit stressed these days. I'd hate to think my humble family is the cause for your duress, but I have an idea which I think you might like. If you're able to successfully find the family vault, you may take as much money as you wish. There is one catch. The family and I shall all be at home waiting patiently to, well, let's just say to make your task a bit more difficult than one might have originally imagined.
I mean, how hard could it be to find that silly vault anyway? And what could they possibly do to me that they haven't tried before? By George, by Gomez, I'll do it.
So yeah, that's not Dan Hedaya doing the voice acting there, and they clearly found somebody else to take over for Raul Julia. But that isn't the point, because the plot here is to steal the Addams family fortune by breaking in and making it out alive. That's not exactly how it happens in the movie, which has this plot to steal the family's house and belongings by impersonating Uncle Fester. I mean, there are elements that are the same, but this game acts like Gomez is opening up the doors to any old person to just rob him. That's kinda weird. Anyway, we start our adventure in the graveyard, where we're avoiding the skeletons and tombstones while Gomez flings golf balls at us. This takes us into the Addams Mansion, where we encounter our first family member. As it turns out, Uncle Fester also has his eyes on getting into that vault.
What? Hey, I don't know who you are or how you got in here, but I do know that you better keep yourself out of my way. That vault's got my name on it, so butt out, wimpy. I suggest you vacate this property immediately. Dig?
Fester? Hey, wait! I thought this was supposed to be all in good fun. You feel okay? Oh boy, this is a weird family. Oh well, I'm sure old Fester didn't mean anything by it. I hope.
When it comes down to it, we spend a lot of our time poking around the mansion and just trying to survive. There's a torture room where a shirtless dude with a meat cleaver jumps out of a cage. There's Wednesday's room, which has a floating Titanic, and wait, is that a Nintendo Entertainment System? Over in the kitchen is an old woman throwing pieces of meat. Oh, and we also go on a brief train ride. All this gets us to Pugsley's room, which is where the game takes a hard break from the movie. Tully ends up destroying a chemistry set that accidentally turns him into a werewolf. Don't ask how, because that's not covered in any of the cinemas. Okay, so it's back to exploring more rooms. We fight a samurai in the living room, avoid Lurch in the hallway, and then fence with the one and only Gomez Addams. Now, here's where things get interesting. Once you've beaten Gomez, it opens up a secret door in the bookshelf. This leads to an underground passage, complete with stone walls and burning torches. Unfortunately, where it takes us isn't nearly as interesting. Tully is forced to choose from a bunch of hanging chains, each of which leads to a different one-on-one battle. There's not a whole lot of story here, so we're just gonna skip ahead a bit. Alright, we're on a boat. Tully knows he's getting close. He's defeated the entire Addams family, he's turned into a werewolf, and he thinks he knows how to get into the vault. There's only one thing that stands in the way. Uncle Fester.
I should have cleaned your ears out for you back there in the mausoleum, Pudgy. Didn't I mention something about you hightailing it out of here?
Well, I guess I do remember something to that effect, but...
That's what I thought. Hate to say I told you so, but now you're gonna have to put 'em up, loser. This is where it gets interesting. For you, that is.
Inside the vault is Gomez. I guess he must have snuck by when we were busy with all those one-on-one fights, but whatever the case, we need to hurry and kick his ass before Thing moves all the money to an even more secure part of the house. Obviously, we win, and here's what happens next.
Tully, my good man, you have once again proven yourself most formidable. You have fought a clean and honorable battle, and it is now with great pleasure I give you the riches you have worked so hard to attain.
Once again, all is restored to normal in the Addams household. The joy of having the Fester they all know and love back to normal has filled their hearts with glee. Everyone has turned out for the festivities. Dexter and Donald Addams, Slosh Addams, Digit Addams, Cousin Lumpy Addams, and yes, even Cousin It made it to the party. Gomez, his heart brimming with love, dances the exciting, although rather dangerous, Mamushka with his long-lost brother. As dawn approaches and the festivities draw to a close, the family has had time to reflect on the exciting events which they had shared with good old Tully Offhead. Ever the curious one, Gomez ponders the whereabouts of his friend.
So what has become of my dear friend Tully? In a strange sort of way, I miss the old boy. You know, cara mia, it's hard to find good friends these days.
This is the life. I knew one day I'd have everything I'd ever dreamed of. Those nutty Addams almost killed me, but Tally Alfred's the victor this time. And from now on, no more Addams family for me. Just me, this island, and all the Mai Tais one man can drink. Oh no, it's you!
See, I told you the old boy would be thrilled to see us. And look, he's all ready to play. Wait, Tully, you forgot your saber. Tully, Tully!
And so it was. And almost everyone lived happily ever after.
The Addams Family.
Okay, so this is not how Tully's story ends in the movie. The Dan Hedaya version of the character never breaks into the vault, but rather gets flung out of the window and into an empty coffin, where he presumably gets buried alive. The truth is, even though it doesn't follow the movie and the plot makes almost no sense, I actually like this ending. I mean, it's definitely strange that Gomez is inviting you to rob him, but at least it has a playful conclusion. It also has surprisingly good voice acting for a TurboGrafx-CD game released in 1991. Don't believe me? Then you really need to go back and revisit the Last Alert episode. Oh boy.
Well, he's a famous man, controlling all the terrorists around the world. I'd even want to get an autograph from him.
Hey, thanks for watching this episode of Game Over, the early years. If you liked what you saw here, then you should know that we post new episodes every Monday. Now here's the question I have for you. What game reminds you of the holidays? Doesn't necessarily have to connect with Thanksgiving or even a real holiday. I'm just curious what games you think of when it gets to this time of the year. Let me hear your thoughts in the comments below. In other news, I'm currently hard at work on a bunch of reviews, including a trio of Persona dancing games. However, my real focus this week is getting everything set up for the big holiday series, which will run between Thanksgiving and Christmas. More on that later this week. In the meantime, I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then,